Hello, and welcome to the Freedman Micropub. We're a small, perfectly formed, fiercely independent little boozer on the East Kent coast. And as well as having lots and lots of lovely beer in the place, we also have lots and lots of interesting objects. The history of some of those objects I'd like to explain to you over the next few videos. The first object we're going to look at, you probably don't even notice. It's above your head on the ceiling, under the fan. I've taken the blades off so you can get a better look. It's off a vessel called the Brandenburg. And at first glance, the life ring's just a rather battered piece of nautical memorabilia from a ship that's long been forgotten. But the story of the ship and how she came to be lost is both tragic and fascinating. The Dover Straits. At its narrowest point, it's less than 21 miles wide, and yet through this bottleneck, over 400 ships a day transit. Add to this cross-channel ferries, fishing boats, sailing vessels, pleasure vessels, and in the summer cross-channel swimmers, and it's a wonder that there isn't more accidents. This safety record is due, in part, to the disastrous events of 1971, an incident that claimed over 50 lives, 3 ships, but ultimately led to safer seas. In the early hours of the 11th of January 1971, the 13,500-ton Texaco Caribbean was en route to Trinidad from the Netherlands. She was travelling in ballast. That's to say, her cargo tanks were empty, but crucially had not been degassed. Travelling the opposite direction against the flow of traffic was the MV Paracas. A collision was now imminent. The Paracas, though damaged, stayed afloat and suffered no casualties, but a massive explosion tore the Texaco Caribbean in half. The bow section sinking almost immediately, but the stern section stayed afloat for some time before it too sank. With the loss of the tanker, the authorities had a massive problem on their hands. 600 tonnes of fuel oil had entered the sea. There was an ongoing search for dead bodies. And when the ship had exploded, she'd torn herself in two. So they had 2 wrecks laying on the seabed in the middle of a busy shipping channel. Trinity House got 3 green lights above the wreck. And regular radio transmissions also warned of the danger, but it was also no avail. The next day, at 7:30, the MV Brandenburg steamed into the area. On board the Brandenburg, a distracted radio operator missed the warnings, a mistake that was to cost him his life. The ship struck the submerged wreck, tore her bottom out, and sank within minutes. There was another 21 casualties and another wreck in the middle of a busy shipping lane. After the sinking of the Brandenburg, Trinity House placed a lightship and 5 lighted buoys over the wrecks. Confident that the hazards were now well marked, they turned their attention to clearing the wreckage and making the shipping channel safe once more. However, there was one last tragic scene to be played out. At 8:16 p.m. on the 27th of February, the tanker Hebrus reported a sinking ship. Minutes later, she updated her report to include people in the water. The ship was the MV Nikki, pictured here under different ownership. She struck one of the 3 wrecks and sank with all hands. Only 10 bodies of the 21 crew were ever recovered. After the loss of the Nikki, Trinity House placed 2 lightships in the area and a further 10 lighted buoys. Operations started to clear the wrecks so the shipping channel could be made safe again. However, during this period of operations, another 16 ships were reported for ignoring the warnings. It was clear that something had to be done. At the time of the accident, the traffic separation scheme in the Dover Straits was purely voluntary. The MV Paracas was breaking no rules when she sailed the wrong way down the shipping lane. However, in that same year, the TSS at Dover became the first of its type to become mandatory in the world. At the time of the accident, there was 31 different buoy systems in use globally. After the events of 1971, a single system has been developed and is now in use more or less globally. Other regulations were also tightened, including the operation of radios at sea. And it's fair to say that after 1971, the seas did indeed become a safer place to travel on. How the life ring has survived the intervening years since the disaster is unknown. Maybe it saved a life and came ashore with the survivors. Maybe it was plucked from the icy waters of the channel, I was picked up on a storm-tossed beach by a beachcomber. The life ring was given to the pub by Peter and Christine. Peter's an ex-Royal Navy man and ex-Coast Guard, so we owe them our thanks for giving us this small but important piece of nautical history.